Hello and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. I'm Lily.
And I'm Sarah, and today we will be reading or discussing Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz, which was a book chosen by our patrons as one of our quarterly patrons' choice. Not poll, we didn't do it as a poll this time, but as one of our quarterly patrons' choice episodes.
But first, we have our quick 5-minute introduction, starting with something great that happened recently.
I bought noodles for myself last night for dinner, inspired by this novella. They weren't hand-pulled, but they were still pretty good.
I also demanded noodles, but they were just frozen udon noodles from the Asian market. Obviously, I didn't eat them while they were frozen, but this book demanded food accompaniment.
Specifically noodles.
Yes. I think my good thing... So, listeners, you can't tell, but I'm wearing my Sauron sweatshirt.
Oh, I didn't know you had a Sauron sweatshirt.
I do. That's not my good thing, though. My good thing is that we ran to the grocery store very quickly today, and on the way out, there was another woman also in a Sauron sweatshirt, but like a different one.
Amazing.
And I didn't say anything. She was too far ahead, and I didn't want to, chase her down. I mean, I did want to chase her down, but I hesitated, and then it was too late. But it was just kind of like a nice moment of, aw.
Amazing.
It was fantastic. A moment of connection that only I know about, so maybe it doesn't count, but...
Also, before we get any further, I feel like I need to apologize to the listener because I do have the tiny terrors, my toddler pugs, out with me as I'm recording, and so you may hear them being gremlins more than usual.
They are going. I feel like the pets have been extra vocal in our last couple of episodes. Yours and my cats as well, so...
They have wanted to participate more than they sometimes do.
Well, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking fizzy fruit punch, which I feel like is the right vibe for a warm San Francisco evening at a restaurant, like sitting in a tiny little patio with twinkly lights all around.
I can totally see that. I'm drinking fizzy pomegranate juice. So similar vibe. Although that was just because what was in the house. And I'm regretting it because the drink is cold. I am cold. I forgot to turn the heater on in this room. Mistakes were made.
I mean, this is also what I had in the house. So, yeah. And it does have pomegranate juice in it. And it is cold, but I don't mind that.
Yeah. I was also thinking green tea.
Tea was the other beverage that I thought suited the vibes of this book. But it's like, it depends on which way you want to go. So I feel like if you want to lean into the warmth of the novel or novella, you go for tea. If you want to lean into the vibes of the setting, you go for, the juice.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Have you read anything extracurricular lately?
I have not done a lot of extracurricular reading.
Me neither. All right. Right off the bat, why do I keep calling this book Atomic Noodle? Is that just vintage sci-fi in my head? Maybe.
Yeah, I can't answer that for you because I don't have that problem.
No, Automatic has just turned into Atomic, and I've done that multiple times while talking to you about it. I don't think I will do it now because I have read the novella and gotten to how the name is developed in the story. So I think that's enough that will make it stick in my brain. But it's just a dumb problem that I had.
Yeah, again, not an issue that I had. But the book is called... Wait, now I want to call it Atomic Noodle. But no, the book is called Automatic Noodle, and it's set in San Francisco, a San Francisco of the future. It's 2063 or 2064?
I thought it was farther than that, but I don't remember.
It definitely was a 2 and a 6. Yes, it was January 8th, 2064. His last recorded memory was from July 31st, 2063. So it takes place in this future San Francisco, and it follows 4 robots who wake up and, for various reasons, decide that their next step is going to be running a noodle shop. And it's fun to read a book written in a city that you know decently well. I'm not going to say that I know San Francisco like the back of my hand, because I don't, but I live quite near to it. I went to school there. I visit there periodically. And the author, Annalee Newitz, lives there, I believe. And it definitely felt like San Francisco.
It did. It was really fun, like, knowing the geography well enough that when Newitz mentioned neighborhoods, I could go, I know about how far away those are from each other. I lived in the inner Richmond and inner Sunset for a couple of years, although at this point that was so long ago, it really doesn't count. However, also, this book is fictional future San Francisco, so close enough.
Close enough.
This was the most familiar setting we have read in a long time. And part of that is, again, because we're familiar with the city, but also it's the closest to real world that we have read in a while.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, of course, there's the Con Wong novel Down in the Sea of Angels, which is also set in a future San Francisco. But that didn't feel as close to this San Francisco, to the real San Francisco, just due to the setting and the, story and things that had happened.
Yeah, that book felt much farther genre-wise from reality, and so that created quite a bit of separation. Whereas this, I mean, it's near future. I'm going to make an argument to call it cozy cyberpunk at some point during this conversation.
I think that fits.
And it was really fun. It was nice. It was nice to be back on Earth after so long we've been reading other books. And also, Con Wong was over a year ago, I think.
That book was a long time ago, yeah. I mean, I think we read it in early 2025.
Yeah. So it was fun to come back home in more than one way, right? Both reality adjacent and also a city that we're familiar with.
Yeah, it was really nice to just be in a little bit of a more familiar setting after so many books that are either, fantasy or far future, set on alien planets and things like that. Yeah. And also just the nature of this being a book about a noodle restaurant. I mean, A, it made me hungry, but B, that's a very kind of grounding plot and just a nice change. Not to say that, they don't go through struggles or anything, but it is a nice kind of almost quiet plot.
Yeah. Close to home in many ways.
Yes.
Not that I've ever run a restaurant, but I did appreciate the amount of business talk included. Now, this is a novella, so space is at a premium just on the page. However, I really liked the balance Newitz struck with including some actual details about things that our main characters had to consider when opening and running a restaurant. They didn't overload us with details. It didn't feel like they just hid their business pitch in their novella or anything. But it also didn't feel like, has this person ever had a job before? Which sometimes in books, especially ones that are so close to the real world, you can run into that, right? If you don't address the realities of a job that people people do have, not just kind of. I'm saying kind of because there was enough marketing talk in here that I was like, I recognize what's happening.
Yeah, it was nice that Newitz included our main characters thinking about some of the logistics that are involved in running a business. It didn't feel like any of that was hand-waved away. It also wasn't the focus of the story, which was good.
Yeah, because that could have gotten overwhelming really fast.
Yeah, like this wasn't about, supply chains and making sure that they have enough flour, but things like that did get mentioned, and it just helped make the book feel very considered.
There was that perfect level of addressing it without going into too much detail or making everything about it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Which I really appreciated. I thought that was just handled really well and made the whole thing feel so much more real and concrete and not just like hand wavy, like, I'm going to open a cafe and you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not that no one has ever opened a cafe, but books about coffee shops do not tend to hit that reality line very well.
They don't always know. And they don't always have to, but it is a nice contrast when a book like this does.
Yes. So, my argument for calling this book at least cyberpunk adjacent is that there are conversations around bodily autonomy and body modifications and how that interacts with identity. And that is one of the things that I think cyberpunk, I mean, cool, awful corporations also, which there was some like capitalist dystopia hints in this as well. But to me, that's what really makes cyberpunk cool and interesting. And in this case, that was also wrapped up in the metaphor where being a robot also kind of was in conversation with the trans experience.
Yeah, I could see the argument for this being cozy cyberpunk. I definitely think that the book does use robots as a metaphor for the trans experience, especially in the way that the robots are kind of a second-class citizen in the country of California, because California is just exiting a war with the rest of the United States. California has seceded and is now its own country. And robots have some legal rights, but they don't have a ton. And the argument for not giving them more is, well, we'll wait and see what happens. You have to, you can only get a little bit because you can't push people too far. And
well, in that way, I think it was drawing on the civil rights movement in the United States quite a bit as well. And I know you have a comment here that racial prejudice comes up, right? People are prejudiced towards robots in a way. And so it's not like a perfect one-to-one, right? There's a couple of different oppressed groups that are being explored through robot identity here.
Yeah, we do also have a human character. I pronounced his name Robles in my head. I don't know how you pronounced his name.
Well, there's an argument to be made because Paso Robles is a city that is spelled the same as this character's name is spelled and is pronounced Robles. Like, that's how you pronounce the city name. However, I believe that is an
Americanization.
Yes. An aggressive Americanization. And so it being a character's name and not a place name, I wonder if it's pronounced more like Robles, which is how I would say that that's more likely to be pronounced in Spanish. However, I don't fucking know. I think you're safe pronouncing it the way the city is pronounced because that's a pretty, like, you can just say, I don't know, there's a city pronounced that way.
Yeah, I don't know, but if you go Robles and I go Robles, one of us is right. Probably.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
So you're referring to Robles, who worked with the robots in their prior employment when the robots were kind of indentured servants to a restaurant that was a ghost kitchen and did terrible food and just like rebranded every time it got too many negative reviews. But he was doing, I think, delivery at the time. He was just a delivery guy, basically, for the...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But he shows up quite early on and is probably the only nice human that we meet.
He's not the only nice human that we meet, because there's the food critic who leaves a nice review, and then there are the human teenagers who hang out and who help create merch and stuff.
That's true. The food critic did not know that they were robots, so I don't know if we can say that we know he was... I guess I said nice, non-prejudiced, maybe I should have said instead.
That's true. We don't know if the food critic was prejudiced or not. But going back to Robles, he does say that he is an immigrant without documentation and papers. So that's touched on through more than just like the robot experience as well. We do see that a little bit through the perspective of the character of Robles.
That's true. There was a very sad author's note at the end. I don't know if you saw it, but apparently Robles is named after someone that Newitz knew who has passed away, which is very sad.
I did see that. It was very sad.
And I mean, a character who was really wonderful to begin with, and that, I don't know if it changes the tone, but...
I don't think it changes the tone, but I think it's a really nice way to honor a lost friend.
Yeah. And especially a character that is just, like, nice and good.
Yeah, Robles was great.
Yeah. And he definitely provided some level-headedness for the robots. Perspective, maybe?
I think he was a good counterpoint.
Yeah. It was interesting, near the beginning, Sweetie, one of our main characters, is in a pretty dangerous situation. And the tone around her talking about it felt really, like, downplayed. And I don't know, it was off. And I thought maybe that's just because they're robots and so they approach life and death situations differently. But then we see Stay Behind later have a memory of a dangerous situation. And that... Oh, shoot. Is Stay Behind they, them? Or does that character use he pronouns?
I thought Stay Behind used he. Yes. His last recorded memory, he scrolled through the events.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Cayenne and Hans are the other two of our main characters. And they both use they pronouns for the most part, except for one sentence that might be a typo, because it's weird to change a pronoun just once for a single sentence. I don't know if you had that. You have a physical copy, so it might be different for you, actually.
I do have a physical copy. I didn't notice typo.
Let me find it. The chapter is called The Sunset and the Richmond.
Oh, conveniently, that's the chapter that I had opened.
Suddenly, Cayenne plunged his 5 tasting arms into the cumin loom. And I'm pretty sure that's the only time Cayenne doesn't use they, them pronouns.
Where in the...
This is after... So they've gone to a restaurant that makes hand-pulled noodles to try them.
Right.
And they've had a conversation, they being Hands, I think, for the most part, although Cayenne talks as well to the chef. They end up buying food and then they're tasting it.
It is there too, in here.
It's Cayenne plunged their tasting arms.
No, his 5 tasting arms.
Oh, it is. Mm-hmm. You said it's there, and I was like, is in the physical location, or is in?
Sorry.
Okay, but I think that's the only time. I'm pretty sure Cayenne is pretty consistently they in the rest of the book. Even in the same chapter, they wrapped an arm around their friend's hand.
Yeah, I think that's just a mistake.
Okay. Because I also, none of the robots are gender fluid. Like, they don't seem to change identity in that way very much. We see Sweetie kind of go from very human presenting to very robot presenting. But she continues to use she pronouns the whole time.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. That was my... Am I missing something, or is it just a typo? Am I reading way too far into this? The answer was yes. I did have an uh-oh moment. This doesn't happen to me very often, which I take as a point of pride. But in one of the interactions, I believe in this case it was Sweetie with one of the delivery workers, I had but they meant well. That's not that bad.
Oh, no.
Which, okay, so I have to interrogate that, and I will do that off the podcast. But that's the joy of fiction, right? You can interact with these things in the safety of not making anyone else deal with that bullshit.
I mean, and I think fiction is good for making you interrogate those moments for exactly that reason.
The scene was clearly telling us that character was doing something wrong. I was not confused in that sense. So I was like, okay, this is a misunderstanding that I am having.
Right, but what I mean is, it forces you to confront that in a way that means that no actual people get harmed.
Yes, exactly. Some things about this book felt very timely. We just had a huge atmospheric river come through both Seattle and the Bay Area.
Yes.
Absolutely drowned us.
Although it's been a couple of weeks since our atmospheric river, so it didn't feel quite as fresh in my mind.
But there's an atmospheric river in this book as well, and the characters have to deal with some flooding issues and just sort of all of the water and how that affects their restaurant setup at the beginning. So that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that contributed to it feeling very much.
Okay, we can't have squeaky toys. I'm sorry. That's on the. That's where I draw the line.
I think that things like the atmospheric river helped with that feeling of this is a book set in a very specific place. For me, anyway. Like, it contributed to the atmosphere of, or the vibe of, yes, this is the Bay Area.
Absolutely. There were a couple of other aspects that made it feel very timely, and in some ways maybe even already outdated, which I thought was fascinating and a horrible side effect of how long publishing can take. But their cryptocurrency, now there is a plot reason for why cryptocurrency has sort of, I'm going to say re-emerged, because I don't know, you heard about it a lot and now I don't hear about it at all anymore. AI has kind of taken over those buzzword spaces, but it plays quite a role in this because robots aren't allowed to have bank accounts, but they can use cryptocurrency. And then there's also like an official City of San Francisco blockchain where contracts live, which is not real.
I mean, no, San Francisco doesn't have an official blockchain.
Well, no, I just no, it's just not a capability. Anyway, so that was interesting. It felt like a blast from the past, but the text dealt with why those technologies that are kind of dead to us have reemerged 40 years in the future. And then there were some slang words like cringe and riz that felt, I don't know. I noticed them. They stuck out to me.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily feel they were that jarring in this book in particular. I had that experience with a different book. Oh, this is another squeaky toy.
Yeah. We can't do that to our listeners, Sarah. I'm sorry.
No, but I can't take another toy from them because they're going to be so unhappy. But I did have that experience with another book that I read recently, which we have not discussed on the podcast, but I did write a review about it on our blog.
I thought that might be what you were talking about.
For Whom the Bell Tolls by J.C. Lynn. And I don't really touch on this in the blog post, but there was a lot of very current language or slightly past current language that felt jarring to me. So I understand where you're coming from with that comment, even if I didn't necessarily feel it particularly about this book myself.
And I am typically a huge proponent of slang, especially when this is a setting that is supposed to feel familiar, right? In this case, now this could just be my biases. I don't actually speak with the youths very often, so I could be very wrong. But my understanding is Riz has sort of passed into millennials know about it now. It's not cool anymore. Now, again, I welcome corrections. I know we have some listeners who teach and so probably know what people are saying much more accurately than I do. But that's the category that slang is in for my head. And so it stuck out in that sense. But it did still make it feel very real. It just made me think that the character was maybe a little out of touch, which is okay.
Speaking of words that made you think a certain thing, I don't know if this was a me problem, but every time I read Grando Sando, which was the
Grubhub
delivery
basically
platform, yeah, Grubhub, I did think Brando Sando, which is not right at all.
I also thought that, yes.
But it was incredibly jarring every time I read it. This is totally a me problem, not a book problem at all. But
I thought it was pretty funny, especially because we're not supposed to think too highly of that platform. It is just kind of tech garbage, right? So it was fine for me to giggle every time the name came up.
I mean, it was funny. I agree. It just also took me out of the book every time I thought Brando Sando.
Well, if this is the 2060s San Francisco, then Brando Sando did exist. Maybe he founded Grando Sando.
Maybe he did. You're right. Yeah. Headcanon accepted.
Oh, the word I had the most trouble with, and this is such petty bullshit. But, oh, and I also know that I'm probably the only person in the world who feels this way. But I really hate puffer jacket.
Why?
The jacket is not puffing. It is a puffy jacket. That is an adjective describing the jacket. I know I am wrong. I know that the official name for that item of clothing is puffer, and I fucking hate it. And this book referred to a puffy jacket using the incorrect, popularly accepted way. And it made me so angry. I also really hate blusher, which I've been seeing more people referring to the makeup item blush as blusher.
Yeah, that one I don't like.
I don't like it.
Puffer jacket I don't mind, but blusher just, yeah.
It's an adjective. That is only me, and I know that. Oh, Newitz does not deserve my vitriol.
No, they do not. They do not.
For about 5 minutes before I had read this book, I convinced myself that it was a regional thing, because the only people who I had heard use that phrase were from the Midwest. And so I was just like, oh, okay, it's a regionalism. That's fine. I can ignore that. But apparently not. That's just what everyone calls it. And that bothers me so much. So we discussed cyberpunk as a description for this book. And I think it's not hard cyberpunk, maybe soft cyberpunk.
Yeah, cyberpunk-esque.
Yeah, adjacent, perhaps we could throw in there as a qualifier. I also think we should talk about where this book falls on the cozy scale.
I do think that it falls closer to cozy than not cozy. There is some conflict in the novel, so I wouldn't necessarily call it like a fully cozy story. Like it's not, on a scale of 0 to 100, it's not at 100.
Right.
But I'd say maybe in the 70% cozy.
I agree completely. If someone said, is this a cozy novel, period, I would say no. There is enough tension around, real world experiences that I think knocks it out of, officially 100% cozy.
And also,
slot.
I think some of the issues that the robots deal with, beyond the robophobia, they also, most of them are dealing with some form of PTSD from their experiences in this California-United States war, which has only just ended, basically. And so, yeah, I think there are enough hard discussions that it's not a cozy novel.
However, the experience of reading it was, for the most part, quite warm and comforting.
And also, just the plot of them opening up a restaurant, a noodle restaurant, is, I think, inherently cozy.
Food. When there is such a center on food.
Yes.
Not all coziness has to include food, but if there's this much food, I think that does push it towards the cozy side of the scale, right?
Yes, I agree.
And there's also that element, they begin as coworkers and end as a found family. That's just nice. It's just nice to read.
Yeah, it was.
And maybe found family's a little dramatic.
I mean, but they all pulled together, and I would definitely say, if not found family, I think they're friends by the end of it, not just coworkers.
Yeah. And friends is such a vague word. You could mean yes, this is a person that I text occasionally and sometimes grab a drink with, to this is a person who I would put my life in their hands. And they're more on they're on the warmer side of friends.
I mean, for
right?
that first one, I wouldn't call, I usually use the phrase acquaintance for that.
Yeah, if you meet up with someone for drinks,
occasionally,
just to hang out with them.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm doing it every week, yeah, that's a friend. If I'm doing it twice a year, I think that's more of an acquaintance.
Really? I consider someone a friend if I actively seek out their company.
We have different scales.
An acquaintance is someone I'm forced to interact with.
No. An acquaintance is someone I don't know very well. If I only see them once a year, I don't know them very well. Once or twice a year.
Interesting.
I mean, they might be friendly acquaintances, but I think for me they would still be on the acquaintance side of things.
Well, this is neither here nor there. So, before we get into our spoiler conversation, who should read this book?
I think you should read this book if you enjoy sci-fi, want something that's on the cozier side of things. Maybe I should qualify that. Sci-fi that's very reality adjacent. And if you want to be hungry for noodles.
This episode of Fiction Fans is brought to you by Solsticia.
That's our zine. Each issue has a different theme that celebrates genre and genre blending in a new way.
PDF and EPUB versions can be purchased on our website, and Patreon supporters of all levels get free digital copies.
You can find all the issues and more at patreon.com/fictionfanspod. Thank you for your support.
The remainder of this episode contains spoilers.
I did have one. I hesitate to call it a problem because I think it says more about my reading preferences than it actually does about the book. But I did have one issue with this story, and that's the main conflict, which is that their new restaurant, Authentic Noodle, has gotten essentially review bombed, and Stay Behind looks into who is behind this review bombing, this targeted spamming, and then infiltrates their anti-robot Discord server and gathers all of this like evidence and sends it to Grando Sando's Trust and Safety. But the actual resolution of him sending it over and Trust and Safety removing the fraudulent reviews all gets handled or resolved off page, which is just a stylistic choice that I think tends to leave me a little frustrated, because you build up this conflict and then it just kind of falls off a cliff for me.
Interesting. I don't think I felt that way. We saw Stay Behind doing the espionage and getting the information, and so not seeing Grando Sando, like, how could we see that happen if it's from Stay Behind's perspective, right? I guess he could have gotten an email from them confirming that they, like, agree with the accusations.
It's just that, like, the next time we hear about it, we see Stay Behind doing the investigation, and then the next time we hear about it, it's like 3 weeks later, and there's a comment in passing that everything was resolved.
The reason why I say I think I didn't have a problem is because the ending did feel really abrupt to me, and I think that is probably just a function of this is a novella. Things are not going to continue to escalate, right? They're going to resolve. And so when that aspect was resolved so quickly, I assumed that meant that was just a stepping stone to the real conflict. It was like hand waved away. I was just like, oh, well, that was easy. So what's the retaliation going to be, you know? And so when that was actually genuinely like the fix, I was like kind of taken aback. But I ascribed that more to just the length of the story and constraints in that sense. But I could see if that had been more on the page, maybe it would have felt more like the final resolution to me.
Yeah, and I think that I feel a little bit how you do about it feeling like it was a stepping stone to a larger conflict. And that's part of my frustration with it, because not that it feels unresolved. There's a resolution, but it just, I don't know, for being the final conflict, it felt very easy.
It seemed simple.
Yeah.
And now this is, again, maybe my prejudice showing, but I did not expect Grando Sando to take Stay Behind's side. I assumed that there would be an auto response that was like, sorry, your complaint was rejected. And then he would have to sweet talk some AI bot into escalating his complaint or something, just because that's how customer service always works.
Yeah.
And so when it was just like, it worked the first time, I was like, there was no way that could be that simple.
Yeah, like I was glad for them that it was that simple, but I was not again, maybe it's like you. I don't have enough trust in corporate safety, which, given the world, who does? But
although he did have a connection, right? He was given the name of someone that Cayenne knew.
Yes, he did have connections to some of the bots in trust and safety.
So maybe he was taken a little more seriously because of that. But I would have liked to see that. I did expect this conflict to have more happening.
Yeah, I think that's where I land on that.
Yeah.
Like, it just needed a little bit more something.
And that's part of what made me think that this book is more on the cozy side, right? Because it does have such a straightforward solution to their problem.
Yeah.
There's not often do they have to go back to the drawing board and try again. It's just the first thing they try works. Now, there are escalating problems in a sense, but again, because of the length of the story, it doesn't go into it that deep. Now, on the non-cozy side is what Susie Q is doing is effectively using astroturfing in a disinformation campaign about if robots are cooking the food, then they're leaking robot oil, which is going to give our kids cancer, and, fake generative AI images of food that's not actually what they're serving, and all of the fake accounts that Susie Q uses to make it look like a bunch of people support her when it's actually just her.
Well, there were a handful of people who felt like her.
It was about like...
It was like 15 or something.
Yeah, I was going to say 1/3, 2/3, or maybe even 1/4 of real people.
Yeah, it was certainly not as many real people as the targeted harassment, tried to make it seem like.
Yeah. And that is such a real problem on social media today. And it's interesting because that is a problem I ascribe to bots. It's bots who are trying to make it look like there's a bunch of supporters for this issue. And so having it be robots who are dealing with that was kind of a fun twist in that sense. Yeah. Although obviously the bots running social media accounts to sow discord in our social media are not the same kind of bots who are opening a delightful noodle shop.
No, they are not.
But that hitting so close to home is what then made me go, but this is not that cozy because this is so genuinely distressing.
Yes. I think there's enough that ties into very big real world problems that it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't fall at the 100 point on that 0 to 100 scale.
Yeah. On top of the ones that we discussed in the non-spoiler section, of course.
Yes.
But this felt like a spoilery enough conversation that I wanted to save it for this part. One thing that did start to get on my nerves, I loved all of the main characters, all 4 of our robots, except for Hans. I'm so sorry, I'm a Hans hater. Not even 100%, because their relationship with Cayenne was so cute. I loved it. I loved how you could tell from, like, their first introduction that they were into each other, and then you kind of got their history in flashbacks, and then you saw them kind of develop. Like, oh, I loved it. A+. So wonderful. However, Hans is the only robot who did not experience the war. They were woken up, like, right at the very end, and never actually... Well, I guess they were a manufacturing robot, so they wouldn't have been on the front lines the way Stay Behind and Cayenne were anyway. But anyway, they were pretty naive in some ways that made me want to shake them. The way they have a total breakdown at the beginning when they get the slew of bad reviews, that I was more understanding about. But the whole thing with, like, they failed because they sold out, like, in what world is selling out of all of your product a bad business day? Like, you were not born yesterday. You had a job before this. Like, no one would ever say that or think that. And that was just, it felt like they just had to be distressed for some reason so that people could comfort them. And I was just kind of like, no, if they're going to be like that, just let them be upset. I just, like, what are you going to do about that at that point?
I didn't mind Hans so much. Hans probably was my least favorite of the four robots, and I did find them a little frustrating at times for that naivete and that kind of lack of real world experience. But not so much that it really affected my enjoyment of the story.
No, and like I said, I liked them for the most part. There were just some moments, and then that one "we failed" moment was just too much for me. I could not.
Hans was a bit dramatic.
And they roll up to the conversation where all of their friends and coworkers are celebrating at how good they did, because they did great. They sold so many noodles. And Hans just goes, "We failed because we sold out before the end of the day." And read the room. Even if you didn't know that selling all of your product is a good thing, read the fucking room. Ugh. That one scene was... it was okay. Hans was cute. I really liked Cayenne. And I liked their relationship. The almost sex scene. The robot intimacy I thought was very fun and felt different from humans in a way that I really liked, especially in this setting.
Yeah, I liked how Newitz did that, because we also see some robot intimacy in Stay Behind's memory of himself and one of his friends. And that also, I mean, it also felt different from what Cayenne and Hans experience, but the same feeling underpinning it. So I liked how Newitz did it.
Yeah, and it is these are robots, right? They're not humans.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just, actually, they're just like us. No, they are different. They are robotic, and they're he-eyes, I think was the phrase used, which was human intelligent level. That's really not what that stands for at all, but that was the gist of it.
It's something about humans, and I think experiencing emotion, maybe. I forget.
Like that.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of different kinds of bots that we meet as well. Our four main characters are all he-eyes. But there's the blockchain contract that Cayenne talks to.
Human equivalent embodied intelligence.
Yes. And so seeing these different robots and how they do interact with the world around them very differently, even from each other, but how the he-eyes still respect the contracts or the security cameras in a way that humans don't seem to get, right?
Well, Stay Behind makes a point very early on in the book where he comments in the narrative that he didn't believe in the myth of graded intelligence. As far as he was concerned, puppy grade and even the maligned machine grade were just as good as the he-eye individuals who were granted civil rights after the war. The way Stay Behind saw it, if you could talk and feel, then you were a person, period.
Yes. Which is also why this is not a one-to-one direct metaphor, right? Because
right.
arguing they're not people would make me sound like a psychopath. It's still science fiction. And the world building was just so much fun and done throughout the story in a way that really added to what we were learning. It didn't feel clunky or intrusive at all. And I feel like I keep saying that about the novellas that we read, but I think that's because we read so few novellas that we're reading the cream of the crop.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe we're just really good at picking which novellas to read.
I do actually think that's true. But in longer books, authors have more space, which is good. Can be good.
Often good.
But it does also mean that there can be more lore dumping happening. And in a novella, there's just simply isn't that economy of page. And so you get really elegant worlds like you get in Automatic Noodle, and it was fabulous.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This is a book that we saw Newitz do a reading from at Worldcon, and so I'm very glad that it was suggested for us by our patrons.
Thank you you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We're on Blue Sky and Instagram at FictionFansPod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com or leave a comment on YouTube.
If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
We also have a Patreon where you can support us and find exclusive episodes and a lot of other nonsense.
Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated. Bye!
Bye.